Every year on March 23rd, millions of Indians pause for 2 minutes of silence. Across the country, thousands gather for public rallies, while others line up at massive blood donation drives to honor 3 young men executed nearly a century ago. The popular narrative frames Bhagat Singh, Shivram Rajguru, and Sukhdev Thapar strictly as violent insurgents, rebels who chose bullets over nonviolence to fight the British Empire. That perception ignores the reality of who these men actually were. They were highly educated, strategic political thinkers who recognized the limitations of armed rebellion. Bhagat Singh himself explicitly rejected the idea that violence was the ultimate solution, writing, "Bombs and pistols do not make a revolution." If these men believed that explosives and firearms couldn't topple an empire, why did they end up throwing bombs in the middle of a government building? In 1928, the British government sent the Simon Commission to India to report on the country's political future. Because this all-British panel did not include a single Indian member, it triggered massive nationwide street protests. During one of these demonstrations in Lahore, police responded with a severe baton charge. Lala Lajpat Rai, a prominent nationalist leader, was brutally beaten by officers and later died from his injuries. Infuriated by Rai's death, Bhagat Singh and his allies organized an assassination plot against the British police chief responsible. However, in a case of mistaken identity, they shot and killed a different British officer, John Saunders. The fallout from that assassination taught the young men a harsh strategic lesson. Operating as fugitives and targeting individual colonial officials with lethal force would never successfully dismantle the British Empire. The Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, the radical faction these young men belonged to, realized they had hit a strategic dead end. They abandoned traditional assassination plots and pivoted to a completely different tactic: political theater. On April 8, 1929, Bhagat Singh and Batu Keshwar Dutt entered the Central Legislative Assembly in Delhi. They designed the bombing as a strategic, non-lethal PR maneuver to broadcast their message to a captive national audience. This diagram shows the Central Assembly floor plan, with red blocks highlighting populated benches where politicians sat. Singh and Dutt targeted empty aisles far away, intentionally dropping low-yield explosives into safe zones to ensure no casualties. They threw the explosives to protest oppressive new British laws, famously declaring their intention was to make the deaf hear. Immediately after the smoke cleared, they stood their ground and voluntarily surrendered to the police. Their arrest was a calculated choice. Once in custody, they weaponized the British legal system against itself, using the courtroom press coverage during their trials to broadcast their message across the entire country. By forcing their own arrest, Singh and Dutt transformed themselves from local fugitives into a national platform. The assembly bombing was an act of mass communication. From the courtroom, they preached a complex political ideology. They argued for the establishment of a fully secular, socialist republic in India. Their domestic demands were deeply progressive. They called for the complete eradication of caste-based discrimination and demanded serious political power for laborers and the youth. Colonial authorities began to panic. The British realized that these anti-imperial ideas were spreading through the press far faster and taking much deeper root than any armed rebellion ever could. The revolutionaries' victory was intellectual. They successfully shifted the Indian public's mindset from wanting minor administrative reforms to demanding complete systemic independence, terrifying the colonial state. Terrified that scheduled executions would spark mass riots, the British authorities secretly moved the date up by an entire day. They hanged Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev in the Lahore Central Jail, a major prison facility in present-day Pakistan, on March 23, 1931. The attempt to quietly crush the movement failed completely. The moment the news broke, millions of mourners and protesters spilled into the streets across the subcontinent. The British execution of the 3 men failed to account for the revolutionaries' public support. Instead of ending the dissent, the state-sponsored violence integrated the martyrs' ideology into the national identity. That is why modern Shaheed Diwas observances in 2026 focus heavily on youth education, feature academic debates, and public service, rather than purely militaristic tributes. Their sacrifice serves as a permanent moral compass for India. They proved that freedom must be actively earned and understood. It is not something that can simply be inherited.